Okay. Okay, so we're just holding in Sif Hay. Again, we're talking about Avurei Achsanta, the propriety of taking away inheritance from one's heirs and naming other people. We certainly said that giving over to a daughter is perfectly fine, but we haven't really dealt with the issue of giving over to other beneficiaries who aren't, let's say, members of the family. So he says, "Va'od yesh la'ayin bi'ikar davar zeh, debivas mishum leka mishum ivuri achsanta." He says, let's further analyze this issue that we've established, that when you want to leave some of your assets to your daughter, there's no prohibition of taking or depriving your heirs. V'hu bivas hanusua kavar. Let's talk about a married daughter. The lichora leka gaba hachtaimish amr besugya dichsuvas hanal damr b'ban litin laminachasav ki hechi delikvitzu Allah inshi leminsava. He says the whole reason why the rabbis made a special accommodation for leaving money for your daughter is to enable her to have a nice dowry so men will want to marry her. But let's say she's already married by the time you're preparing your will. She's taken care of, right? Ela sheyesh lomar, he says, so what is the accommodation? Is there any basis for leaving money for your daughter even at the expense of your rightful heirs? He says, yes, we could make an argument as follows. The af benasua shayach hachtaima, de mikiven shahar b'bnei adam noagin kain laseis labas af b'makom haben. He says, because when a man marries a girl and he knows that that she has a PhD, you know what Papa has dough, right? So she knows Papa has dough. So that's one of the reasons why a guy may want to marry or may be incentivized to pursue this young lady. I'm not making a judgment whether that's correct or not, right? In other words, should that be part of a person's calculus in pursuing a mate or not? I'm not passing judgment, but the Gemara definitely says that is a calculus that men make when they pursue a mate. They want to make sure that they'll have some minimal provision by marrying into a girl's family. Okay, but let's say this young man, when he married this girl, knew that Papa has dough. Okay, he says Shahar b'bnei adam nogim ken lasis labas af b'makom haben, and he knows that even though this woman that I seek to marry has brothers, but I also know that it's conventional for a father to leave over to his daughters some of his inheritance. That's the reason why, or one of the reasons why he's marrying her, and he has a certain reliance that my father-in-law should live long and have a wonderful life, but at the end of the road, somewhere down that road, he'll pass away, and I'll be one of the beneficiaries, or my wife will be one of the beneficiaries of his estate. So he says, the hadar havale hanami bichlal masha amru chazal, the rashai lases labas b'makom banim ki hechi delikvitzu Allah lisa'ena. And he says that also is part of the reason, that goes into the reasoning of why Chazal said that you're allowed to leave your daughter and name her a beneficiary in your will, because men are going to want to marry her. Not necessarily that they're going to get an immediate dowry, but that they know somewhere down the road you're going to leave money for your daughter. But he says, but Rav Cohen says, I'm not 100% satisfied with this argument, and I'm not sure whether the rabbis had this in mind when they said that one should make an accommodation for his daughter by giving her a chatzi zachar, by giving her half of what a regular heir would get. But as we pointed out previously, anytime there's going to be a need to name another beneficiary in order to avoid machlokas and strife, you can certainly do so. Okay, so now we get to the main issue, which is kol zeh kasafnu le'inyan bas b'makom banim. He says, up until now, we've been talking about naming a daughter as a beneficiary when there are rightful heirs, when a man has sons. Aval le'inyan sha'ar krovin, she'enam ru'uyim lirash izvono, the kol shekain sha'ar inshi. He says, but what are you going to do with other named beneficiaries that you'd like to name in your will? People who are not your children, people who are either other family members or just in general, people that you would like to be beneficiaries of your estate. Let's say you want to leave a certain portion to a charity or to an individual. So he says, what are you going to do about the issue of taking away money from your rightful heirs? There is such a concept in Chazal that you should not tamper with the system of inheritance that the Torah lays out as far as priorities. Da'af keshem shayer liyorshav miksat izvono ve'eno misalkom yerushatam legamre. So the Chassam Sofer teaches us that as long as you leave something for your heirs, you don't completely cut them out of your will. Akati ise bichlal ivuri achsanta kol she'inam notlim chelkam b'moshalam. That there still is a problem of depriving your heirs of what they're entitled to. In other words, according to the Chassam Sofer, making an accommodation for your heirs from just a portion of your estate is insufficient. V'chein nira das hatosus b'ksuvas nun amud beis v'das harashbam b'bava basra and v'gam pashtus asugya d'chsuvas nun beis amud beis b'uvda d'Rav Papa v'Yehuda bar Mereimar mashma kain u'chamoshe kvar heyer kain b'chsam sofer sham. He says that there's a whole story there, the Gemara in Ksuvas daf nun beis amud beis, that seems to imply that very same thing. Let's take a look at that Gemara really quickly. Ksuvas nun beis amud beis. Hold on. So this Gemara is talking about adding something in a girl's ksuva to make her a beneficiary in the will. Okay, here's the story. Gemara relates, Rav Papa Iasik le Lebrei be Abba Surah. He arranged for his son to marry into the family of Abba of Surah, Azul Michtav le Ksufte, and went to supervise the writing of the bride's marriage contract. So Shema Yehuda bar Mereimar, Nafak Asa Ischazile. So Yehuda bar Mereimar heard that Rav Papa was coming and came out to present himself before him in honor of his arrival. Kimato lepischa avakamiftar minei. When they came to the entrance of Abba Absura's house, Yehuda bar Mereimar took leave of him as he did not wish to enter. Amar le neil mar bahadoy. And Rav Papa says, no, please come in with me. Chazia de lo havanichale. Rav Papa saw that Yehuda bar Mereimar was not amenable to the idea of entering the house. Amar le my daitach mishum da amar le Shmuel Rav Yehuda shinana lo tihavi ba'avuri achsanta afilu mibrabisha livratava. He said to him, what is on your mind? Do you not wish to enter due to that which Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, shinana, which usually means sharp one? Do not be a partner in the transfer of an inheritance, even from a bad son to a good son, as it is not known what seed will come from him. Perhaps the bad son will father worthy children, and all the more so one should not be a partner in the transfer of an inheritance from a son to a daughter. So Hanami Takanta de Rabban, and he continued, are you worried that your arrival will pressure Abba Surah to give his daughter a more substantial dowry? But this too is an ordinance of the sages that a father must provide a dowry for his daughter. The Amar Reb Yochanan Mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Amar Lehani Mili Midaite, and this is as Reb Yochanan said, the name of Reb Shimon ben Yochai is quoted above, that the sages enacted this matter so that a man should take the initiative and write an agreement to give his daughter a dowry as large as the portion of his possessions that his son will receive as an inheritance. So Yehuda bar Meremar said to him, this applies only if the man gives of his own free will, but should one force him as well? In other words, my presence will put pressure on this man to feel compelled to do so. Rav Papa said to him, did I say to you that you should enter and force him? I merely said that you should enter, but do not force him. He said to him, my very entrance is an act that will effectively force him, as he will increase her dowry in my honor. Eventually, Rav Papa forced Yehuda bar Meremar and he entered. I guess, he put pressure on him. So he was silent and sat without uttering a word. Abba Surah thought that Yehuda bar Meremar was angry with him for his failure to grant his daughter a suitable dowry. He therefore wrote down in the marriage contract all that he had as her dowry to appease him. Ultimately, when he observed that Yehuda was silent, Abba Surah said to him, even now the master will not talk? By the master's life, I have left nothing for myself. Yehuda bar Meremar said to him, if you are acting for my sake, that which you wrote is also not amenable to me. Finally, understanding his wishes, Abba Surah said to Yehuda bar Meremar, now too I will retract as I acted in error. Yehuda bar Meremar said to him, I did not speak so that you should turn yourself into the kind of person who retracts once he gives his word. You should uphold your agreement, but the agreement was not to my liking. Okay, so that whole story sort of indicates this equivocation in the eyes of Chazal of taking away inheritance from your sons and giving it to your daughters. On the one hand, you should try to create a nice dowry in her ksuva from your estate. Basically, what you're doing is that you are placing a lien on your property for a very large amount, an amount that one of your sons would receive if you were to pass away today, right? And that's what she is added into her ksuva. So a daughter is getting a very nice amount, but at the same time, you shouldn't, you see from the story of Yehuda bar Meremar that he's really not happy with this accommodation at all. He says, Amnam ladas kama poskim lo chashiv avuri achsanta el b'misalko liyorish legamre. So even though the Chassam Sofer says that he's really not happy with the whole idea of taking any money away from the heirs and giving it to others, but that's not the opinion of many of our other halachic authorities. He says they only have a problem of naming other beneficiaries if you cut your heirs entirely out of the will. Halohema hatashbatz b'chela gimel simin kuf mem zayin. He says the tashbatz is one of those people who's a rishon. Because of shama tashbatz shegam das ha'iter kein behilchos matna shchiv meira, and he quotes that the iter is an earlier rishon is of the same opinion. V'chemoshe kosav hachsam sofer sham lidchos ha'ochachem edivrei heter tzarich ion. Right? We won't go into that. He says v'huvu divrei hatashbatz or tashbetz sos hachoshen. And the Ktsos brings the Tashbetz's Shita as well. V'chein das hanach l'shiva v'haponim me'iros, and he brings a number of other people as well. Uladas poskim elu ein sarach lamash kasavnu le'el ba'os beis v'shem amaram mitzvah hadaleka b'shtar chatzi zachar mishum avurei chsanta ayin shamim. And based on this opinion, you don't need all of the arguments that we presented above to justify leaving your daughter a portion of the estate. As long as your heirs are getting something of the estate that's a respectable amount, you're allowed to name other beneficiaries as well. So just to finish this off, we'll do that Amir Tzashem tomorrow. We'll finish off this discussion of the permissibility of naming other beneficiaries in your will at the expense of your heirs is, according to many poskim, perfectly fine, provided that you leave something for your rightful heirs. And we'll hold it here. We'll continue. Have a wonderful Chodesh, everybody. And we'll see you, Mirz Hashem, tomorrow.